Today's topic I'm pretty excited about is the freedom formula, escaping the trap of overwork, or is your business a jail sentence or a ticket to freedom? And I think this is a really important topic because I meet so many people who run businesses and they're just stuck. And they get stuck on the treadmill and they just sort of, the idea they had when they first started just never rolls out because they're just too busy. So today we're going to be talking a lot about how you get out of that trap. So before I do, a little bit about myself. For those who I haven't met before, my name's David Guest. I run Outcomes Business Group. We've been going since 2001, which makes us 24 years old by the end of this year, which makes me feel old. But I suppose the main thing for me is that I've been working with business owners for all these years, and I've realized the one big secret of being successful in business is building self-managed teams. So this idea of getting out of jail and starting to get this ticket to freedom is so important for people who run businesses to reframe. And we're going to be talking a lot about how you do that today. This is what I've found. Over my time as a business coach and also a mentor to businesses, I find so many people are just doing this thing where they're busy. I ask them, how's business going? And they say, we are flat out busy. And I say, that's fantastic. But when we look in the bank account, it doesn't reconcile with the busyness. So they're flat out doing operations most of the time. They do a little bit of admin, usually after hours, because that's the only time they can do it. And their marketing and sales effort is minimal. And the reason it's minimal is because they say, we don't need to market. Most of our work comes from word of mouth or referral. Is anyone in a situation where most of their work comes from word of mouth or referral? Can I get a quick show of hands? Yeah, a few, right? Now, sometimes this is because we're terrified of growing our business. We don't have the capacity to grow our business. And so we really don't want to put a marketing strategy in place. I'm just going to push the mute button. I'm not sure who that is. There we go. And so the real problem that I see is they're stuck in the middle. And when we're stuck in the middle of a business and someone says, hey, we should double the size of our business. Now, if you're already working 60 to 70 hours, doubling the size of your business is terrifying. It's terrifying. And so if we look at the ideal business, it needs to look more like this. Sales and marketing, admin, and operations need to be in proportion. In other words, we should be doing enough sales and marketing to fill our capacity. We should be doing enough admin to make sure we get paid on time. And we need to do this one little thing, which is very subtle, which is move you as the business owner out of the day-to-day operations. Now, for some people, that's terrifying. For other people, they say, I love what I do and I don't want to stop doing it. And I hear lots and lots of excuses. But one of the problems with you being stuck in the middle is you may not be running a business, you're just running a job. In other words, no work, no pay. And if we're getting paid dollars for hours, which is fine in self-employment, one of the downsides is risk. So today we're going to be talking about how you minimize that risk, how you start leveraging yourself out of the business. We have 3 presenters. I'll be the last one talking about how to build self-managed teams. But before me, we've got Cal Holliday. Some of you might know Cal. He's pretty prolific in what he does. And we've got Brett Hansen, who's going to be talking about the financial side. So the 3 elements that we're going to be covering in today's presentation. The first element we're going to be talking about is tech. And I think tech is so vital these days because technology advancements in the past few years has been massive. And for some people, they're not even aware of what's available to them. So Cal's an expert in this area. He spends all of his time looking at what's new in the technology space, and he just he integrates it into business quite well. So he's going to be talking about availability. We're going to talk about dollars, because I think one of the things a lot of people don't do is they don't use dollars to drive decisions in their business. And so we're going to be talking about how do you create a structure in your business where you're making profit rather than wages. And then the last thing we're going to be talking about is a plan. How do you put this all together to make sure that you're on track and to make sure that you can grow your business beyond yourself? So without further ado, what I'd like to do is introduce our first speaker for today, Cal Holliday. Can I just get a quick show of hands? Those people already know Cal. Okay, awesome. Those who haven't met him before, you're about to be scintillated by his brilliance. I've known Cal for a long time. He's a world traveler. He doesn't live in any one country anymore. He's getting married, and apparently there's 7 touch points in a marriage, the way he's doing it. So this is about the 7th time I've heard about him getting married, which is awesome. But more importantly, when it comes to tech, this guy knows his stuff. So I'd like to hand over to Cal, and he's going to talk a bit about Productivity Hub. But more importantly, his topic for today, which I'll have to get exactly right, is the tech, the team, and the thinking that creates freedom and the business of your dreams. So over to you, Cal.
Mate, it is awesome to be here, folks. And yeah, thanks for that bit of a warm-up, mate. As as Dave just said, I spent a lot of time traveling, live in Thailand now, and I'm not going to bore you with all the intricacies of my life. I'll tell you a little bit about it. I'll get a bit of a slide presentation happening here for you as well, and we'll get this show on the road. So let me just say that business doesn't have to be a jail sentence. There is a ticket to freedom, and I think what's going to happen today is we're going to be showing you some stuff that's going to really make a difference in your life. And what really inspired me many years ago is I read this book, The 4 Hour Working Week by Tim Ferriss, and I got some takeaways from that, and I said, that is the life that I want to live. I don't want to be tied to the sink, tied to the office chair, tied to my desk. I wanted to break away those chains and actually make a difference in my life. And so I did. I started doing a lot of travel. I spent some time up in the Northern Territory of Australia. For those people who are in Australia, barramundi, crabbing and everything up there is absolutely awesome. And this idea of getting your thinking right, all right, get technology in the term that we're going to be talking about today is really where freedom comes from. And so I see a problem. I see a massive, massive problem in our business world today. We're getting influenced by so much stuff that we are just missing the point. We are missing the point of what is it that we are really about and trying to do. And I'm just going to get straight into it. After nearly 40 years in business, I've been in the technology world since 1982. So a lot of you here might not have been born then. I was one of the first technicians in the Microsoft space. I was a Microsoft technician back in 1982, all right, when it first launched. And technology has become a sentence, I believe, very much in the business world today. If you don't get it right, it can weigh you down, all right, and it'll shackle you up. Now, you'll actually notice here that there is so many people that just don't have a technology plan, and that is the sentence. If you do not plan out your technology, you will end up in strife. And I've written a couple of books on this. I've had 5 best-selling books going around the world these days, talking about how do we actually lead ourselves, how do we become, unleash the best part of ourselves. And the latest book I have, which is Unleash the Freedom Machine, really talks about this in depth and understanding how the technology world is driving change within business. And if you don't grab a handle of it, you are going to be in strife. Now, you'll actually notice there in the middle there, a lot of us get caught up in the subscriptions. We have a massive, massive amount of subscriptions. And I'm going to say to you today, you've got to start thinking, change that mindset and start thinking, what's the one I need? What's one? Just keep on thinking of one. Stop thinking of, I've got to have this plethora of different systems, all these different technologies. The more technology you have, the more different logins you have, the harder it's going to get. So think of, how can I consistently get back to one? And when it comes to subscriptions, here is probably the first takeaway you want to write down. And I know that Brett a little bit later on is going to be talking about the key numbers. This is a key number in technology. 4 to 6% of your revenue should be around about your technology budget. Now, you'll actually notice there, I've even got it in the middle there. I've actually got it whited out. And the reason being is because that number is changing rapidly. These are the latest statistics coming out of Forbes about what's that level of technology you should have. How should you actually budget for it? 4 to 6% is a good one. And so about $400 a month is nice. All right, that becomes up about a nice starting point, and it starts to grow up from there. And the other thing is this AI explosion. Like, people are going, oh, I've got to get a chatbot, got to get this, got to get an AI bot to do something. Just be careful. A lot of people are either scared of AI, or they are just avoiding it. And you cannot afford to do either. All right. You cannot just jump in and do it and think that AI is going to be the answer. It is not. All right. But don't be scared of it as well. So make sure that you're out there thinking about this. And I'm going to give you some tips and tricks around what to be looking for in your technology to relieve your sentence. So I don't know about where you're at in your technology, but the reality is, if I look into most businesses, and I look at businesses all the time in their tech, and I see this list of login details, and they've got a whole bunch of applications that quite often they use. And here's a list of some of the most common ones that are around. Like people, you want to get your calendar, you want to get your time management right. So they go out and get something like Calendly. They want to get their marketing right. They want to start to get their social media right, to get all their payment gateways, to get documents signed, to get courses built. Oh, I'm just exhausted. Just my throat's already getting croaky thinking about all these and talking about all these different technology pieces that we really are required to actually have to be able to get a successful business these days. So there is a lot out there. There's a lot you got to think about, but you don't have to have them all individual. I want to start transforming your thinking straight off. Think of how many applications you might have. And look, there is a chat here. Drop a message into the chat. Just have a think about, just for a second, how many pieces of technology, how many logins do you have? All right. Is it, say, 5? If you can't think about it, you're going, oh, it's 5, 10. Just throw it in there. How many pieces of technology do you think you have and you're using on a fairly regular basis? I mean, at least working with them on a weekly basis. Throw them in the chat, have a think about it, because if you're starting to have more than 5, okay, so thanks, Mark, we've got 10 there. So 10 pieces of technology, 15 plus, yeah, Wolfgang 15. This is such a common thing I see. Now, not 20 plus. Well, okay, we're getting up there. Keep on going. Like who can beat Marlon? So we had 20 plus there. Blanca, you got 5. That is a nice number. If you can get under 10, you're actually heading in the right direction. Let me just say that to you. One of the biggest tips I'm going to say in your thinking is, number one, not only having multiple platforms, multiple pieces of technology, you've got to be cutting and pasting all over the place, but you've also got to have and remember all your login details. And we go, oh, hang on a second, what's my login detail for this one? What's my login detail for that one? If you've got 25 or 10 plus, let me just say, here's a tip: LastPass. LastPass is a great one to be able to help you with your login details, but still think about how are you going to start to reduce the number of application logins you've got. Because if you've got something that integrates, you'll end up with a better business in the long run. So I don't know about you, but I've done a psychology degree, and I love the idea about how the human brain works. But in our modern day society, this is just another problem. All right, we get so influenced we go onto Facebook and we see all these Facebook ads. We see people, hey, what's the latest blah, blah, all right, piece of technology you're using that's working for you? All right. And so we treat our friends as our advisors to plan out our technology. Folks, I'm just going to say it, that is dumb. That is absolutely dumb. If you are going to Facebook and asking friends who have got no idea what they're talking about, and they're only talking about it from their experience, you're going to the wrong place. You're actually turning the key on that jail cell, and you're locking yourself away in the wrong place. All right. If you're starting to choose your technology because it's free, let me just say to you, nothing is free. Nothing is free. You'll actually get caught at some stage if you try and go, oh, I just want to get the free stuff, because eventually you want to expand your business. You want to start using it. You need to start thinking a little bit more laterally, a little bit more creatively, and start to think, how do I get something that's a little bit limbic, a little bit easier to use, that generates results for me, all right, that gets a return on my investment, and that my time is saved. That's how you get rid of your jail sentence. Stop thinking about what everybody else is doing and start thinking about that every individual person, even if you've got the same business as somebody else, the way you think and what your dreams and aspirations are for your business are going to be different. So what does this all look like? What do we do? What does the transformational group of companies do globally? We make it really, really simple. We help you to start to identify the technology that will make you profitable. It's called the Technology Stack Profit Maximizer. We actually help you to identify, design, and then go out there and actually implement those things that you need to do. All right. You just got to start to think about, how do I identify the different things? So there's a couple of key little pieces around that. How do I identify and think about it? How do I get clarity in this maze, absolute maze of technology? How do I get clarity in my thinking to help me get to the right space? And I like this little analogy. I call it the Pepsi Coke fight. You know, you've also got the Holden versus Ford for those people who are Aussies and like your car racing. So often, if you go to Facebook, what you're going to get is an opinion based upon a person's experience and what they like and what they don't like, rather than looking at what you want. And so if you're going to break out of this jar and break this sentence, you've got to stop thinking about, that's their preference, and so I'll just go with their taste. Not everybody likes Coke. Somebody likes Pepsi. Some people don't like any of it. They just like their water, whatever. If you want a Japanese car, if you want a Korean car, whatever. But make sure it's the right one for you that fits your budget and can actually make sure that you actually get the right products. So let me give you the 3 critical factors. Get your pens out. These are simple but essential pieces for you to think about. If you're going to get a piece of technology, the first thing you've got to think about is, does it integrate well? In other words, can I use that one piece of technology and I can get data coming in from different places? Does it integrate well? Now, I don't mean using things like Zapier and Pabbly, those little bolt-on sticky tapes type of products. I'm talking about, does it actually import data well without another third-party application? So first question, most importantly. Second question for you. If you're going to pick a piece of technology, what's the support like? If you've got to wait on a support chat and you've got to sit in and put in a piece of, and ask a question, and it's going to take you, a couple of hours or even up to a couple of days to get a response, we don't have that time in today's technology. The technology is there for instant. So I'm going to show you where you can get literally 24 hours a day, 7 days a week support to make sure that if you've got a question, you get an answer within 1 minute. 1 minute from a real person that can give you real advice and has got the experience. And the other third critical factor here is, if you are going to go out there, you need to make sure that it will suit your future plan. If you don't have a plan, maybe that's a good place to start. And I'm going to give you an opportunity to get a plan together today for you. So let me give you some basics. All right. We talk about Pepsi, Cola, Holden, Ford. The reality is, in the technology world, is it Microsoft or is it Google? They are really the 2 choices. There are others out there. Yes, you've got the Apple environment, but it just doesn't cut it. It doesn't have the integration. I'm just telling you that's for a fact. These 2 have got most of the integrations. Pick one. Pick one to be your main one. I use Google, love Google. A lot of the guys I know use Google. Unless you get into the big corporate space, Google is probably the best one. It was built for the cloud. It was built in the cloud environment, and it was built with the purpose of integration. Microsoft wasn't. It was built to stand alone. So that means that once you actually know what ecosystem, what it is you're going to use for your main source, you then got to make sure you've got the storage, your cloud storage. Now, if you pick Google, you'll get Google Drive. If you pick Microsoft, you get OneDrive. Now, a lot of people have different data sitting in lots of places. I'm not saying that you don't have an account with some of these, but I'm saying the account is only there for the purpose of transferring a file from somebody else to be able to accommodate somebody else. But you should have everything sitting in one space. One space. I have everything in Google Drive. Lock, stock, and barrel. As soon as I get a client that sends me some information, if they send it to me in Dropbox, what do? I move it straight into Google Drive. And when I share it back to my client, I then share it back to them in Google Drive. All right. So I use the other ones as a transfer station, but I have everything in the one spot. I don't store things in there. So I don't have to think about where is it. I just know 100% of the information I need is sitting in Google Drive. And when a client comes on board, I say to them, hey, I respect the fact that you might be in somewhere else. Working with me, we're going to be working in Google Drive. Full stop. All right. And some people resist, and that's okay. They either come around or you have a little bit of a conversation. You say, maybe they're not the client for me. And that's okay. All right. You are going to serve them better being in one space. Having systems. Whoa. Look, I could probably spend the next 2 hours, 3 hours, 3 days talking about the importance of systems. These are the things that will get you the freedom, right? Having a well-documented system and a location for it. And I'm going to be sharing in one of the future events that we do with Dave here, Systems Hub. It's a new piece of technology, not quite ready yet to go to the world, but it's getting very, very close. And it's all about building business systems. And I know there's a lady here, Blanca, we have some many conversations. She's an absolute guru when it comes to building systems. And that is the sort of stuff that we've got to start to think about. How are you going to get your technology, again, one spot, one login, have everything that's got your systems in it as well. So let's just have a very quick go on measuring the costs. Now, I talked about all these different pieces of technology. If you are going to go out there, it can cause you a lot of pain. And so what we've got here is a list of the standard things that most people are using, all right, and their monthly bill is around about that $2,000 to $3,000 mark. So here's a total of $2,807, all right, with a fairly stuff that's fairly common to most businesses. You know, 2.5, that's US dollars, folks. All right. So if a lot of you are here in Australia, all right, you're talking about $3,500 to $4,000 worth of technology most businesses are starting to need to be able to operate and be competitive, because that's what your competitors are doing. And I don't know about you, that means you've got to have a budget of around about, or an income of around about $1 million a year. If we look at that 4 to 6% ratio, that's a fairly significant income. All right. So hopefully Brett will give us some answers, and now we get to that income a little bit later on. All right. But start thinking yourself, if you're spending more than 4 to 6% on your technology, you're spending too much. So the challenge, let me just put it to you, and I've taken a fairly simple approach today. I've said you do one thing, do it well, make sure you've got the one thing right. And here's your challenge. You can do it all yourself. You can hire a team, and Dave's going to be talking to us about the importance of building a team and having a team. Or you can actually go out there and start to change your thinking and say, hey, technology is going to be my one to do, but I need an expert, all right, to think about what it is that's going to help me to get to the next stage. Where is it that you're up to? Are you going to do it yourself and keep on running yourself into the ground, hire a VA, or start to think about the experts? And as I said, all in one. If you can find a system that will do it for you, that will do it in one place, and you've got the systems and you've got a trained team that's going to do it, now you are going to break out of jail. That's the way it's going to be. If you want to do it, you've got to take the steps. And let me just show you very quickly through a piece of technology. This is not new to some of you. It's a product called High Level. All right. So it's a product that is an amazing product that I've been an agency within this environment now for nearly 8 years. All right. It was started back in 2016, 2018 it first launched. I became an agency in late 2018, and I've built over 150 additional features into that platform. So mine is a very rare little beast. And it really makes a huge difference to you when you start to think about things. It does all your lead generation. So a lot of people say, hey, I've got to get more leads. We see that all the time. Drives me insane. Let me say, leads are good, but you actually need to have sales. All right. Sales is where it's at. Lead, you can get a lot of people into your funnels, but you need to convert sales. But this is one of the things you need to do. So we've got a whole lead generation capacity and everything within the system. We've all got to manage our time. All right. So it doesn't matter what type of business you are in. This has got calendar systems in it that makes Calendly look like a toy. All right. It's got the ability to be able to book systems, to be able to build a simple calendar, round robins, events. If you're in a service-based business where you're offering multiple services, I use like hairdressing, for example, so you've got different people who might be able to do color or cuts or perms or whatever it might be, uh, multiple different services. This will manage all those sorts of areas for you as well. Social media, we know it's out there. We've got to be out there. We've got to be seen. And so you can actually schedule all your social media posts. You can build the social media posts using AI and be able to then get it out into the world and generate your leads. So not only can you actually speak to people and get their email addresses, you can do it on social media and you can set it up. It takes around about 15 to 20 minutes to set up a month's worth of social media posts. So you actually make sure you're getting it done and you're getting good responses, good SEO, etc. from it. It's got all the automations. If you want to get rid of time and stop having to think about doing things, automations are the way to go. So it's got a series of recipes in there to make all the automations absolutely a walk in the park, step-by-step guides, etc., etc. It's got all in these workflows, the ability to communicate across 9 different channels. So most CRMs, most ways that people communicate these days is pretty much via email. And email is really becoming a problem with spam filters and everything. So think about how you communicate and how you integrate within the different areas. Just think about this. We've got a massive amount of communication challenges and you need to have cut through. One of them is SMS. So here's a little question for you, a little quiz. I've only got another minute or two to go. How many people here got an SMS? Just say yes, a little Y into the chat. And that, because you got an SMS, that was a reminder. Oh, that's right. We've got this event on today. All right. SMS is becoming a very, look at the yeses coming in there, Dave. All right. No, didn't do that. We've got a lot of people saying, yes, I got the SMS and that's what made me get here. It reminded me last minute. People are needing those sort of things. So you've got a choice. You can actually go out there, make this happen. We've gone from 2023. We're in 2024. You can make a choice to get to 2027 at the slow, fast, or actually basically death by whatever it's going to happen. So I'm going to just make it really simple. There's a QR code here to wrap up. Please snap off that. That will get you an appointment with me personally, directly. If you come into there, take a time, I'll give you a free consult. I'll look at those, some people 8, 10, 20, whatever applications you've got, and I'll help you to understand where you can actually save money and save time to get rid of this jail sentence. And for anybody who wants to jump on there and book a call with me, just to book a call, I'll get you a free copy of my Unleash the Freedom Machine book to you, all right, at any time into the future. That's a wrap, and I think I'm smack on time, David.
You've done an amazing job, Kel. And I will just sort of back what Kel's just said. We transitioned we were in Infusionsoft a while back, and we had about 8 to 10 different technology platforms, and they were all integrated through Zapier. And it was to be honest, it was a nightmare because when something breaks, we don't know where to look. We moved to high level. And one of the things you didn't mention in there is the telephone system integration as well. So there's just so many things that the technology offers these days. And, we transitioned after 10 years and it just consolidated our costs, consolidated our technology, and just made it simpler. So Ilsa said she can't see any appointments available in Productivity Hub. Do us a favor, and Kel's going to fix that while we actually move through the next phase of this presentation. But what I would like to see from everybody is, what is the one takeaway that you got from Kel's presentation into the chat box? What is the number one distinction or lesson or action item that you're going to take as a result of what Kel's just talked about? So into the chat box, what's been most valuable? Elsa's found it. It's all good. Integration from Blanca, of course. I think it's key. I think as technology grows, it becomes more complicated. And we had a theme last year, which was simplify. And we just said anything that we can get out of our system that's redundant, get rid of it. And it's helped us so much. We may have too much tech, too many strings to the bow. Yep. Simplify. Yep. You got it. Thanks, Tom. And just one system. And really, like you think about it, it almost happens organically. We get complex over time and we don't even see it until someone looks at it and goes, oh, this is complicated. And it's more like a renovation that just goes, had another room added, another room added, another room added. Sometimes we just need to look at the whole house and say, we need to redesign. So rationalize integration. Thanks, Russell and Mark. Manage your technology. Think through clear strategy. Fantastic. So Cal, if you can drop a link into the chat box for those who missed your QR code, that'll help them also book a time during the rest of the presentation. What I'd like to do is I'd like to move on to our next presenter, Brett Hanson. So if I can get Brett up on the screen, please. Nope, maybe. There he is. Good looking bloke. So Brett, for those who don't know, can I just get a quick show of hands for those who do know Brett? If anyone does on this call. If you don't, you should, because I've met a lot of accountants in my time and getting them to do a presentation is challenging at best. Brett actually has the ability to communicate, which is awesome. And today he's going to be talking about a really interesting topic, which is it's planning the way to a successful financial exit from your business. Now, the big distinction before I just do hand over to Brett is most people who are running small businesses are working time for money, right? They're in the wage scenario, self-employed. And there's nothing wrong with that structure, except for the risk that's associated with it. I think the quicker we move to profit from wages as a business owner, the quicker we start to build some redundancy in our business and some value in the business as well. So Brett's going to tap into the financial side. He's going to talk about dollars in an interesting way that's going to help people understand exactly why dollars are so important when measuring performance of your business. So Brett, I'd love to hand over to you at this point.
Fantastic. Thank you, David. Hi, everyone. Good morning to everyone. I hope you really enjoyed Kel's presentation and got something out of it. I know I definitely did. It was just something that even this week, we've been looking at our own app stack. We use different of us app platforms, be it Xero, be it XBM, be it all different types of things. So we're looking at that ourselves over the next couple of weeks to see what suits us best. Now, I'm just going to share my screen right now. And let's get started. So, as David talked about, we're looking at planning your way to a successful financial exit from your business. So when I get into that, we're going to talk about one or two different key things. But before we do that, probably a little bit about me. I'm Director and CEO of Hanson's Evolution. We're a business advisory and accounting business operating out of Mount Waverley here in sunny Victoria. While working closely with hundreds of small and medium businesses throughout Australia, we especially focus on business owners who are currently needing to properly structure themselves, are looking to grow or currently growing, and those who are ready to transition from their business into a new set of hands. So looking at that end, so starting to plan for that end. We do a few things a little bit different here at Hanson's, a little bit from the norm. I'm not just an accountant. Yes, we do tax, we do all that sort of stuff, but I also specialise in self-managed superannuation, along with succession, asset protection, and estate planning. So not only do I have an understanding of a client's current financial situation, but we also look into the future and how we can protect them and their assets into the future. Oops, sorry. So today I'm not going to bore you with those numbers, the debits and credits or the technical side of things. No one really wants to listen to a boring account at this time of the morning. But we're going to focus on that end goal and that end goal for you and your business and provide you with a starting framework on how we're going to get you there. So I'm going to ask you one question this morning, and that question is, what does a successful financial exit look like for you and your business? So I want you to think about that today as we go through this presentation. What does that look like for you? Are you that person in business who's worked your backside off for years, answering to everyone, nose to the grindstone, paying yourself, maybe your spouse, maybe your kids, just a wage, maybe taking some profit, living a lifestyle paying your tax, but really have nothing to show for it. But that doesn't matter because your business is your super, right? Yep, heard it all before. Oh, my business is my super. But too often, too many people come to the time when they're ready to retire or ready to sell their business, and they've realized there's actually nothing to sell because the business just revolves around them. So all they're able to do is actually shut the door. And all that hard work, the tears, the stress they've endured has been all for nothing. So as even Kel talked about, is your business truly just a jail sentence? Are you stuck in that business and you don't know actually what to do about it? You're just stuck there doing the day-to-day grind and you can't see your way out. You can't see those doors opening. Or are you that business person that's planned appropriately? You've built a business that can run without you because you've been working on it and always knew that the end point and what that looks like. You haven't ripped the business dry of its cash, thinking the business money is yours. We see it so often that people just think the company, that's my money, I'm going to take it out. You might have supported your business and nurtured it and cared for it because your business is your own and you're looking after it for the future. So then when it comes to that time to exit, the sacrifices that you've had to endure over time and over those years actually come to fruition. After going through what was essentially 3 years of COVID, businesses around Australia and life has never been able to get back to normal. You can see that still today. And to be honest, people have become desperate and lazy and really want a quick fix. So we all know business has been tough and you're stuck in that day-to-day grind, working 7 days a week, working for a wage, earning little out of the fruits of your labor. Yet everyone else is succeeding out of what you're doing, just not you. So while working in your business for all those years, you know, when it comes to the time to retire, you're going to sell your business and live a happy and financial lifestyle, right? Am I right? Nah, wrong. Wrong. While you think you've got a great business, it's not what you think it's worth. The value is you. So what does that mean? How are you going to get out of if you think it's worth $1 million and it's actually worth stuff all? Because it relies all on you. It's actually naive to think that your business does not have an intrinsic value, but you've got to identify what is that value. And so that one thing, that one number is such a key. So I ask you the question, do you actually have an idea of what that number is? What is your business actually really worth right now? But before we get to that, I just want to touch on a few little pointers. A little story about a man named Simon Beard. Simon Beard was the founder of a business called Culture Kings. I don't know whether anyone knows who Culture Kings are. They do all US sport and all paraphernalia and hats and shoes and all that type of stuff. Simon started his business in the Carrara markets up on the Gold Coast. Worked out of his garage, used every penny he had to get his business to where he wanted to be. He had this vision of where he wanted to get to. He could have sat back while making money, but he couldn't afford to just rip the money out of the business and enjoy a lifestyle. He kept reinvesting in his business because he knew what his endpoint was. He knew what his number was. So even at a point when his business was growing and it was actually starting to make money, he actually got it to a point where it was making $10 million a year. But even at that time, he still only took a wage of $100,000 a year because he was actually building something. He'd actually planned for where he wanted to be at the end. And at the end, the sacrifice was actually worth it. Only a couple of years ago, he sold his business for 600 mil. So it's not about what you do, who you work with. It's about looking after your baby and not ripping it blind. Most of you would be aware of this famous quote by the late, great Kerry Packer, and he was correct. We want to pay as little tax as possible. However, this should not be our main focus. I can assure you it wasn't Kerry's main focus, even way back then when he delivered that quote. But to many business owners, and also, to be honest, to many accountants, we always focus on tax. I've had so many clients come to me and tell me they don't want to pay tax. We actually love our clients paying tax. We love it. But you would say, why? Why do you want clients to pay tax? Because it means they're making money. And when you're making money, your business is successful and it's actually valuable. But it often means it can also run without you. So most accountants are obviously good and worry about focusing on the 25% amount that their clients pay in company tax or more for personal tax. Every year the scrambles on to ensure, they get all their statements in, zeros reconciled and up to date, lodge on time for any penalties incurred, all that type of stuff. Rinse and repeat every year. It's predictable. It's a given. It's done because it's law. They concentrate on trying to save that 25%. You can pay on your business profits or even more on personal taxes. Yeah, we do that. We do it great. But why spend $100 just to save 25? More importantly, we focus on protecting that other 75% and we focus on growing that other 75%. With all the spotlight on trying to save your tax and remain compliant, what about the rest of your wealth? Your home, your business, your shares, beach house, fishing boat, whatever. There's no point concentrating on saving your tax if it can all be gone in a split second. So 75% of something is worth more than 100% of nothing. So think about that when we're talking about value. Too many businesses actually fail because they're actually too greedy, or the business owners are too greedy. They want the money now to buy their lifestyle. They rip the company blind, they rip the money out. That's great for them personally. Go off on their overseas holidays, go off and do what they want, buy their motorcycles, their bikes. But while they're doing that, their company's actually hemorrhaging, their business is hemorrhaging. So what have you left in the business for it to actually succeed? What about the business's future? Right, your future's, perfect. But what about the business's future? Because that's your baby, that's your child. So the tax that you've actually paid over the years, we can structure that right for you. We can plan for that, and we can actually get it back when you've retired in the future through super, through franking credit refunds, all different types of strategies. But we focus on now that value. So what are you actually going to do to plan your successful financial exit? What is your number that makes it a successful financial exit? Put in the chat, let's have a look. Who actually knows what that number is? Have you actually got a number that you know that when you exit your business, that's what you want, or that's what it should be worth? Do you know what your business is worth now? Are you actually happy with that number? And if you're not happy with it, what are you actually doing about it? Or you're just going along day-to-day grind, oh, let's sell, let's just do this and that. So we look at the beginning with the end in mind. In 1989, Stephen Covey first published a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. This was a business and self-help book that explores the principle of effective self-leadership and improvement. Most importantly, his second habit was begin with the end in mind, where he discusses envisaging what you actually want in the future so you can work and plan towards it, and understanding how people make important life decisions. He actually says that all things are created twice. Before you act, you should actually act in your mind first. Before creating something, actually measure it twice. Don't just act, actually think first before you act. Too often, small business owners actually blindly work their way through business, minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day, year by year, no plan, things just happen. And then one day they get to the end point, and when it's time to sell and enjoy the fruits of their labor, they're shocked to learn there's actually nothing to sell. Or if there is, or there is, but it's not what they thought they would actually sell it for all those years ago when they started in business. Because remember, your business is your super. So what we look at is understanding your number. What is that number right now? Because your number is the key. And what I mean by that number is, what do you envisage that you want to sell your business for to live the lifestyle of financial freedom? That number is a real key, because if you're not there yet, then what are you actually doing, and how are you actually going to get to that number? What? Did I hear that you don't have a number? Well, then you've got no idea what your business is worth, and you've got no idea what you're going to end up with. And are you going to successfully financially exit? So what we use is a tiny little snapshot, and we use it on working out how we actually get there. So to give you visibility on what your future may look like. So this helps us help you find that number. It's a simple valuation tool that today I'm making available to you. So simply put up your hand in the chat or email me after this event, book in a 15-minute snapshot meeting where we can talk about it. We can work through this for you, and then we can send it to you. You can work on that and actually start to think about working out what your number is. But what does it actually mean? So basically, when we look at valuing a business, it's a multiple of different numbers, but we need to bring it back into simple terms. So when we look at what my business is worth, we first look at EBITDA. What the hell is EBITDA? EBITDA is simply earnings before interest and tax, depreciation allowances. What does that mean? Your profit. Your profit after a few different adjustments, adding back depreciation and interest. We then use that profit, multiply it out by a couple of different multiples, and then plus or minus what your net assets are, i.e. plant and equipment, all those type of things, less liabilities. So once we then find that number, you'll soon realize that's not the number that I actually really wanted. So then we go, well, what are you actually going to do about it? Another famous quote, Benjamin Franklin, which was then followed up by Winston Churchill. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. How can you achieve something if you don't plan for how it's actually going to happen? Think about Ariane Titmus, rolls up to the pool each morning, swims 50 laps, does a few events, and bang, she's an Olympic legend, right? Nah, of course not. If we're going to improve that number that we want to put in place, and that number that we've just identified what our business is possibly worth, then we actually need to plan. But what are we actually planning? So I bet a lot of you in business plan the work that you actually do for your clients. You map out production lines. You map out for your team, how do we do it? Who does what? When do we do it? We keep our clients happy. We keep them up to date with progress. This is fantastic. Our clients are wrapped. We do really good work. Your team are happy because the work's getting done. The work's getting out the door. We're being successful. Yep. But do you actually plan for yourselves? Do you actually plan for your business? Is your shareholder actually happy? Do you know how and where and when your business money is coming in, and most importantly, going out? The most important report for a business owner is not their financial statements. Who wants to know what's happened in the past? It's all about what's going to happen in the future, and you can't change what's already gone. So this is an example of a cash flow forecast, a forecast of cash in and cash out, because cash is king. So you want to be able to plan for what's going to actually happen to it. I actually do this daily for my business. On top of that, we then look at what's called three-way forecasting. You might have heard about it. Three-way forecasting includes revenue, it includes your expenses, it includes your assets, your liabilities, and of course your cash. A holistic business projection. But clients often say to me, you can't budget in my business. Well, that's fine. They've already failed. So once you've done all this planning, you've then got to work out, well, now you've got to start tracking your results. What's the use of putting all this planning together if you're not going to monitor your progress and just wait until the end of the year and see what happened? We need to be constantly tracking our progress because we want to ensure that we're on target for our number. And if we're not, we need to change our plan and quickly. Cloud accounting launched in Australia back in 2009 when Xero hit the market. And since then, the cloud ecosystem, those apps that we've talked about, has developed so much out there that there's programs for everything to give you the best information about your business. But what's the use of having them if you're not actually going to use them to monitor your results and change the plans along the way? So are we actually living in a dream world, or is it now becoming reality? How can you plan appropriately if you're not tracking what is actually going on right now? Why plan for the next 12 months based on what happened 12 months ago? You need to actually understand your business performance now and make adjustments on the run, because those adjustments can then improve your profitability, improve your cash flow, which then in turn improve your number. I've put there 6 famous coaches around the world. You don't actually think these great coaches wait until the end of the season, get their reports from their assistants, analyze the data from the past season, and then say, hey, we're going to do things a little bit differently because that didn't work last year. It's too late. The horse has bolted. And they mightn't even be there next year. They might have lost their job. No, they plan out the year right at the start, and then game by game, analyze the results, see what's working and what's not, make adjustments where required, and plan for the next game. And they do it again and again, week in, week out, until they actually achieve the ultimate result that they're looking for. They achieve their number. In business, we can't just wait until the end of the financial year and see the results and then try and improve. Sometimes we don't see those results for 6 to 9 months. What's the use in that? We need to be constantly analysing the financial results, making adjustments, planning the next month, and ensure constant improvement, because that constant improvement is going to get us to our number. But how do we then know if all this work, all this planning, all this analysing will actually get us to a financially successful exit? We reevaluate. We run the numbers. We go back to our valuation tool. Does it actually stack up? And if not, what do we need to do? How do we reposition? What adjustments do we need to make to our plan? Rinse and repeat, because everything comes back to that number, your number. Because your number then quickly becomes your castle. And when you're in a position then to build a moat around your castle, you know that you've got to that successful financial exit and you've achieved. Thank you for this morning. Thank you for joining us. I hope some part of my presentation triggers something in you to find that number, your number. And remember, make sure you note it down in the chat or send me an email, put your hand up so that we can have a chat and we can get to you your simple valuation tool. But more importantly, if you would like to talk more about actually planning your way to successful financial exit, here's how to get in contact with me, and I'd love to have a chat. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, David.
Excellent. Thanks, Brett. That was awesome. 2 things. First of all, if you can type your email into the chat box for those people who would prefer just to click on it, that would be awesome.
Yep.
I'm going to suggest 100%, if you don't have an accurate picture of the current valuation of your business right now, you need to talk to Brett. It's a snapshot. He'll do it in 15 minutes on a phone, and then he'll sort of share with you how to work on improving that value. Most people are a bit naive to this. They go, well, I don't need a valuation on my business because I just work on my own. What I do think is that you guys need to get an external person to crunch the numbers, because the numbers don't lie. And I think that's really where Brett kicks into it. We've talked about Cal as well. If you're not sure if your tech stack's working for you, you need to look at these 2 things. They're critical. Let's enter the chat box. What has been most valuable out of Brett's presentation? If you took away 1 item from Brett's presentation, what would it be? Into the chat box, what's been the most valuable thing? Theo, start with the end in mind, 100%. The magic number, yes, it is a magic number. And most people have no clue what it is or even what it could be. And I think it's interesting because I always often use the metaphor, if you go to a builder and say, build me a house, first thing they'll ask is, how big? And you say, I don't know, just start. They go, we can't start unless you tell us how many rooms. But in business, you can start a business with no idea of what you're building and just get a client. And then when you ask that business owner, they just say, we just want more clients. What are you building? I don't know. So be clear about the end. It's so critical. Yeah, thanks. Wolfgang said the same. Be clear about the most important number, which is the valuation of your business. Now, if you're self-employed and you don't want to build an asset value, that's fine. But make sure you're building a super fund or something as a reserve tank, because when you stop working, you stop getting paid. So, yep, Brett, if you can type in your email address, I think there's a few in the chat box. You can grab onto those while we move into the next presentation.
Cool, thanks.
All righty. So, my turn. We've talked a bit about tech. We've talked a bit about dollars. The next thing that I want to touch on is this thing called the plan. And how do we get there? Because for a lot of people, Brett quoted a very important quote, which is, most people fail to plan because they don't know what to do. So let's talk a bit about the symptoms. So my presentation today, we're going to be talking about how to take the fast track to freedom by building a self-managed team. Because I think one of the best kept secrets of running a business is finding and keeping great people. And often the fear that people have around this is, I can't afford to pay wages. I'm not sure where to find good people. Good people don't exist. They won't work for me. There's so many reasons people don't want to build teams. But I'm going to suggest that the only way to create value in your business is to get yourself out of the operations. And the only way to really do that is to have someone else do the work. So let's talk a bit about this roadmap. Busyness. I want to quote this term because some people know what busyness is. It's not business. Busyness is I'm flat out. And I often ask people, how's business? And they go, we're flat out. We've got so much on. And the second question usually throws them, which is, how's the bank account looking? And they go, we're in building mode. You know how it is, sweat equity. We're getting started. And I say, look, the bank account don't lie. When you tell me you're busy and there's no money in the bank account, there's a fundamental flaw in this model. The second thing we see a lot of is just not profitable. There's no money left at the end of the month. And for some reason, people are either siphoning the money off, as Brett alluded to. They're paying too much for their technology because they really don't have a handle on it. Or they're literally just making enough money to survive, right? And they push really hard to make sure they can pay their bills, because if you don't pay your rent, you get kicked out. You don't pay tax, you get shut down. You don't make a profit, no one really cares, right? So they're just not profitable. The last one I see a lot of is this one, can't find good people. Just can't find them. They don't exist, right? And I'll suggest to you that they do exist. They just don't know you exist, right? And when you think about it, how can you possibly find good people? Phil said, can you share your screen, please? I am sharing my screen. It's on my Spotlight. So if you click on Spotlight or me, you should be able to see me. Here's a real problem, right? We get stuck working in the business. We're stuck on this treadmill. And if we don't work, we don't get paid. So we always sacrifice planning. We always sacrifice strategy because we've got clients that need help. We've got prospects that need attending to. We've got products that we need to ship out the door, so we get stuck. So what we really want is we want less stress, right? For most business owners, they are stressed to the max. They don't go to work for 40 hours a week. They're constantly thinking about their business. And when they're not at work, they're thinking about what they should be doing. The second thing we see is that people want more profit. Now, the problem with wanting more profit is unless you're measuring profit properly, and I'm not talking about wages, I'm talking about leftover profit, how do you get more of it? And the third thing that people want is they want great team members. They say they don't grow on trees or we can't find them, but they want them. They really have no strategy around how do I attract these great team members? Because ultimately what your business should be is a ticket to freedom. And I think people forget this when they start their business. Business is choose your own adventure. In other words, if you don't decide where you want to go with the business, it's a bit like a 4-year-old taking a Great Dane for a walk. The question is, who's walking who, right? And I think for most people, they go into business with great dreams and ideas, and then they get hijacked. And they get hijacked into just doing the work, or they get hijacked by the demands of the business, and they end up starting to hate it. And one of the reasons they start to hate it is they've got very little control over what happens. They basically show up and they just deal with a mess or the whirlwind. So we're going to talk a bit about a pathway for you today on how do we get past this. One of my favorite quotes that I picked up last year from a guy by the name of Ryan Deese, who's he's a technology entrepreneur in the States. And he put this up and I said, this is exactly true. The more valuable you are to your business, the less valuable your business is. The more valuable you are to your business, the less valuable your business is. When you speak to Brett and when he does his assessment, one of the questions he'll be asking is, how much does the business depend on you? Because the greater that is, the less the number is. And for some people, they are the business. And I'll say to you, as Brett said, if you are the business and you try to sell that and get out of it, it's worth donuts, $0. So how do we get out of this? Okay. The way to get out of it is to build this thing called a self-managed team. Because I don't want a team that I have to be there every single day to tell them what to do. I don't want to micromanage. And I certainly don't want to be in a situation where I'm stressed about the wage bill that I have. And I'm not sure if these people are actually making me money or costing me money. And there's three things that stop people from building a self-managed team. The first one is this one. The amount of times I hear, oh, hard to find good people. Hard to find. And you say, what do you mean hard to find? Oh, the people replying to my ads, they're just not the kind of people I want. Or, I've had a nightmare experience. I've employed the wrong person. And I go, well, possibly you have. But that's not the only problem. The second one is that if you do employ the wrong person and their productivity ain't there, you've got low productivity. So you're paying wages for people who you don't even know if they're actually producing a return on the investment of wages. And the third problem that we see that stops people building self-managed teams is this fear of churn. What happens if I bring someone on and I teach them everything about my business and then they decide to go out and compete with me? Or even worse, they get poached by my competitors. There's an old saying, I can't remember who quoted this, but it was, what happens if we train them and they leave? Well, what happens if you don't train them and they stay? So you're really going to be thinking about, how do I find good people? How do I make sure they're productive? And how do I make sure that they stay? And there's three ways you can do this. So the first one is, if you're finding it hard to find great people, chances are you don't have recruitment as a priority on your list. And I'm not talking about just being a recruiter. I'm talking about having a recruitment engine, right? A mechanism for recruiting high caliber team members. Because if this is the one thing that you do is find good people, you will change your business. Because as Brett talked about business valuation, and as the quote from Ryan Deese suggests, the more valuable you are to your business, the less valuable your business is. The more high value employees you put in your business, the more valuable your business is. So think about recruitment engine as non-negotiable. The second piece of the puzzle is productivity. And here's the dilemma. Most people get paid for their time. In other words, I pay people per hour, which means they clock in and they clock out, and therefore they fulfilled their obligation. They showed up. It's up to the business owner to determine what that person does during that time. Now, we talked about business systems already this morning, and I'll suggest that every employee needs a system to follow. Because with a system to follow, now we've got a performance framework. We say, when we employ you into this business, this is what we want you to do, and this is what good looks like. So now it's very black and white that we can see what the productivity of our team members are. And if we don't have this in place, then for most people who employ team members, and you'll notice if you do, you look on your P&L, and probably the biggest expense item on your P&L is wages. And it's high risk, right? Because they're humans and they come in and they clock in and they clock out. We did our bit. It's up to you to make sure we're productive. So you need a performance framework within your business to make sure that you have a self-managed team as well. And the last piece of the puzzle here is obviously this staff churn. People leave you, and some of you have done this yourselves. Most of your good employees leave because they outgrow the organization. And what I mean by that is their vision of what they want is bigger than you can provide. Their vision of what they want is bigger than you can provide. A team stability system requires you to think about the long-term tenure of your employees. What are you doing to make sure that their ambitions fit within your business's ambitions as well? Now, these are the three elements that really most business owners don't work on at all because they're too busy. I don't have time to do this. I'm too busy serving clients. So I want to talk a bit about how do we get out of this? How do we break this problem? Because I have a quote too. Albert Einstein, one of my favorite quotes, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. You're here for a reason today. And I don't know if it's the topic that resonated with you or because you had nothing else on. But the fact that we're talking about the difference between a jail sentence and a ticket to freedom today means that you have some level of inkling that you want to fast track to success within your business. Well, I'll suggest to you, if you keep doing the same thing, you're going to keep getting the same result. Brett pointed out something super important, which is the goal. You need to know what you're building, right? I can't go to a builder and say, start building my house and I'll tell you how many rooms I want later. I have to tell them exactly what I want done as an end result. I want you to imagine that if you knew what you were building in your business, if you knew what perfection looked like in your mind and you created it as a vision, all of a sudden we can build towards the vision. We can employ people towards the vision. We can add the technology towards the vision. So we're really starting to think about how do we build this business that's going to be of value rather than how do I get up and go to work every day. So let's talk a little bit about this. I'm going to talk about two things here. The first thing I want to talk about is you. So when we talk about business ownership, there's three different hats that most business owners wear. They're not even aware of, right? Now, the first hat they wear is being the technician. Now, the technician's job is to do the work, right? Self-employment is being the technician, is doing the work. And doing the work is about getting up every day and making sure that orders come in, making sure that orders are fulfilled, and making sure we collect the money. The second level of you is where you start to realize that you can't do it on your own and you become the manager. Now, the manager has a different function within the organization to the technician. The manager's job is to make sure the team is doing their job. The manager's job is to make sure the team is doing their job. Now, if you don't have a team, you're self-managing. If you're thinking of building a team, you need to start defining what you expect from your people so you employ the right people into the right roles and they're productive. Now, if you do this really well, your business will grow. Typically, what I've found is people who are the technician, self-employed, they're generally going to cap out around 500K per annum, around, right? Depending on the industry you're in. And why they cap out is because they run out of time, right? They are just flat to the boards. And they're the ones that get into this busyness type scenario because everything's around them. Then they start to cotton on. I can use technology, I can use people, and I can start leveraging. So they start building up this management skill set. So they become the manager. So if you think about the technician, their job is to just go to work every single day, keep their eye on the prize, and sometimes they burn out. So it doesn't look so great. The manager's job is simple. Their job is to look backwards into the business and make sure that everyone's doing their job. The last piece of the puzzle is this one. You also need to become a leader. Now, what is the difference between leadership and management? Well, it's super simple, right? The leader's job is to look forward and to project into the future what's going to happen. What Brett talked about today is you need to do some prediction. You need to decide what you want your business to be. You need to come up with a number that's suitable for you. And here's the surprising part about this. That number can be anything. It can be $100,000. It can be $100 million. You get to choose. Now, here's the irony. Whatever that number is that you choose, if you don't choose it, you usually get stuck in the technician and the manager role. If you do choose it, you will focus on different things. So a leader who's building a $100 million business will focus on different things to a leader who's building a $100,000 business, because they're starting to think about, how do I scale? How do I find the right people? How do I get all this done? So let's talk about the roadmap. How does this look actually physically? I've been doing this for about 24 years, and I learned that there's 4 stages that a business will go through. 4 stages. Stage number 1 is where the technician craves getting control. I need to control this thing. It's out of control. I'm in chaos. I am burning out and I cannot survive this. Now, control requires 3 things. The first thing we need is we need to be clear on our end game. I call this being aspiring, right? Now, Brett called it having a number. Anyone else will call it having a goal. But if you don't know where you want your business to be in 5 or 10 years' time, you are flying blind. Think about a GPS in your car. One of the most powerful devices that I have in my car is my GPS. I love it. But it doesn't do much for me until I put the destination in. Because until I put the destination in, all it tells me is where I am. It doesn't tell me whether to turn left or right at the end of the street. So you need to have your vision. And so this becomes step number 1. The second step of control is you need to be a planner. It's not you need to have a plan, you need to be a planner. Brett touched on it as well. He said, footy coaches, any competitive sports coaches, they're planning every single week. They're looking at what happened this week and they're saying, what do we do differently next week? So planning becomes a verb, not a noun. You don't need a plan. You need a planning mechanism within your business. And the last piece is you need to track. Now, both presenters today put up a screen that showed a dashboard, and it showed us that we can track things, okay? So we can track things like dollars, but one of the problems with tracking dollars, it's a rear view mirror. It tells us what happened, as Brett alluded to. When Kel showed his workshop, his platform, he talked about tracking things like activities, which are leading indicators, things like number of appointments, number of leads, conversion rate, all these sorts of things. Now, as a technician, if you want to get control over your business, you need those three things. And what that does is it gives you a foundation for growth. So what happens next? Well, the technician says, I want control, but what I need is I need cash flow. Now, Brett talked about cash flow. He said cash is king in business. We need to have cash flow. We need to have cash flow statements. The most important document you'll ever have is a cash flow statement, because without cash flow in business, we choke. And if someone's raping and pillaging, as Brett alluded to, taking all the money out of the bank account and using it to go on holidays, I can choke my business, which means my business can't grow because there's no cash. So we need cash flow. Now, cash flow requires three things. It requires us to, first of all, attract. This is marketing. Attract new clients. We need to be able to convert those clients. And we need to be able to deliver our service. And here's the good news. For the technician, these are the two focuses. Excuse me. They want to get control and they want to get cash flow, which is great. So then we move into the manager role. We wear the manager hat and we say, you know what? We need cash flow because we can't afford to employ people without cash. But what I want is I want growth. And what does growth look like? In my world, growth is about building my team. Growth isn't just about revenue. Revenue is an indicator. Growth is about how do I build a sustainable business? So the manager says, I need to build a team. In other words, I need to recruit. I need to delegate. And then I need to retain. So I need to get the right people on the bus. I need to delegate the work. And then I need to make sure that the right people are staying. Because if I get the people to stay, the value of my business starts to increase. So the manager says, I've got two things to do. One is get cash flow in the door. The second one is to build my team. So then we talk about the leader. The leader needs followers. So we need a team to be a leader, because we can't lead without people to lead. But the second thing the leader is aspiring towards is what we call leverage. And leverage, by definition, is how do we do more with less? How do we do more with less? Now, as a leader in business, the way we do more with less is we start looking at our resources and we actually do this thing called leading. What does leading look like? Well, leading is about predicting the future. Leading is about reading the play. Leading is about making sure that my team have confidence in our direction as a business. Now, if I lead successfully, my team will be inspired. If my team are inspired, they will take on their job as if it's their own business. They will act as if they're a business within a business. And if I see that working, then I can take I don't need to micromanage. Micromanagement is a symptom of poor leadership. So if you want to run a business that doesn't stress you out, you start building leadership into your activity and you start building your strategic leadership team. And if you do that, you will finally get to the point where you can ascend. Now, I don't mean stop working in the business, by the way, when I say ascend. What I mean is that you can start working on the more important and the more leveraged activities, which is the leadership piece. Now, here's the good news. This roadmap is proven. We've been using this for nearly 24 years. Here's the bad news. It takes time, it takes effort, and it requires a lot of discipline, because people get so busy in their busyness that they forget what they're building. So if you were a business owner and you started down here and you said, I need to go down this path, I'm going to suggest that for you to get down this path, you need to actually go through this in almost an indirect way, and you should be aiming towards your goal. Now, Brett talked about your goal being dollars. What is the sale price of your business? For some people, it's profitability. What is the profit number that I'm happy with? For some people, it's lifestyle choices. There's no right goal for your business. There's only a right goal for you. And unless you know what that goal is, you're not building a business. You're just going to work every single day. Now, I know this looks a little bit complicated, but in reality, I'll do them because as Ryan keeps telling me, I can't understand your writing. So I'm going to put this up as a image that you can see if you want to take a screenshot. The 4 stages, going from chaos to control. Number 2, building a cash flow engine. Number 3, building the team for growth. And number 4, being leverage. Now, we know that we start down here, wherever we are today. This is now. And we know that the importance of setting a goal for our business. The first goal I want you to set, and this is an interesting question that I'd ask you to write down, is what will my business look like when it's finished? What will my business look like when it's finished? Now, for most people, they go, that's an unusual question. I don't intend on finishing my business at any point in the near future. And I'm going to suggest this, right? If you don't begin with the end in mind, if you don't decide what my business will look like when it's finished, then what are you building? Okay. Now, finished will be one of 3 things for most people in business. The first one and the most common one, 80% of businesses will end up closing their front door. And they'll do exactly what Brett said you shouldn't do, which is I go to get my business sold and people say it's not worth anything because you're in the middle of it. Now, the reason that happens is because there is no deliberate move to creating value within the business. So if you're happy with that, if you generate enough cash flow to support your lifestyle, and then when you finish working, you just want to close the doors, go for it. But be aware that that's what will happen. Option number 2 is that you sell your business. You can sell your business. But if you want to sell your business, if you're one of those people, I want you to answer 2 questions. The first question is how much for? And the second question is when? What date? So if you're one of those people looking to sell your business, how much for and what date? Because I'm pretty sure that person that Brett referred to who sold his business for 600 million, he knew what he was doing, right? He said, I am actually taking my time. I am not taking cash out of the business because I know it's going to be more valuable if I leave it running full tilt. So if you're looking to sell your business, how much for and what date? The third option is that you don't sell the business, you run it under management. Now, this is good too, right? Don't sell the business, just don't have to show up every single day. So now your business becomes a profit generator that has no direct relation to you showing up every single day. In other words, you can take a few weeks off and the business still runs. Now, to me, this is fantastic because now I've got the best of both worlds. Because a business that runs without me is more valuable to sell, number 1. And number 2 is I keep the assets, so I'm getting the cash flow from running that business. So they're the options, right? And there is a path. And for those who couldn't read my writing, you can take a screenshot of that. You'll have the whole plan of how we know you can grow a business. Now, the reason I showed you this is because I know this works. I've worked on this with hundreds of different business owners and everyone's at a different level. But if you don't have a plan to follow, when we talk about working on versus working in, people go, I worked on my business this week. Great. Which one of these did you work on? Right? Which module? Right? Because to build a business that has asset value requires you to build asset value. And if you know what to do, you do it. But if you're not sure, you'll just end up squandering that time away. So another favorite quote of mine, Bruce Lee, he said, it's great to know this stuff, but if you don't apply it, it's useless. It's great to sit here and watch this and go, this is great. I understand that, or I've seen this before, David. I go, great. Show me the bank account. Show me the plan. Show me the business that actually is moving towards your end game. Because if you don't have it, then knowledge is not very valuable. It's the application of that knowledge that is super valuable. So I just want to talk about how we work with people very quickly. I mean, there's 3 things that I want to touch on here. The first one is, if you're looking to build a team, first thing is you need to have some cash because you need to pay wages. Second is you need to have an aspiration. You need to be aiming for a bigger picture. If you feel that you're stuck not finding the right people or with team productivity, that the people you have aren't productive, or if you're just feeling like there's no way out off the treadmill, we can help you. I just want to quickly share a couple of quick results. K2 I've been working with for a couple of years now. In 120 days, we quadrupled profit. Now, we did it by delegating operational tasks, exactly what we talked about today. Steve, We did 150% profit increase in 120 days by just putting the right people in the right roles. So your team is important to you. Eldon, interesting guy, Eldon. He's a farmer. He creates hay for a living. We quadrupled his profit in 75 days just by putting a planning system in place and said, but you have to plan. Eldon, you have to plan. You've got to sort of think about what the next steps need to be. You need to employ the right people. So once you decide you want to do this, it moves quickly, right? Emma quadrupled sales by getting off the tools, right? It's possible, but you have to make decisions about what you're willing to do and what you're not willing to do. One of my favorite quotes of all time, Jim Rohn, I learned this when I was 21 years old. And he said, never wish life were easier, just wish you were better. Because life is just life. What happens, we can't control outside of our world. We just have to hang on for dear life. And the trick is to become better as a business owner and become more successful, more understanding of what I need to do. So, where to from here? If anything that I spoke about resonates with you, any one of those elements that you would like some expert help with, I'm happy to jump on a call and show you how to fix that particular problem. Because for some people, it's one bottleneck. For some people, it's, I really don't know what I'm building. For others, it's, I can't find good people. I don't mind what it is. I'm happy to give you some insight because I think for most people in business, they think, oh, he's going to try and sell me something. I'm not interested in that. If I can't help you, I don't want to help you. I think it's the same with Cal and with Brett. We're looking for people who want to grow that we can actually support. And that's one of the reasons we run these events, right? I'm happy to show you the roadmap that we've been using for years. But if you want some specific help on it, you can jump on an expert call with me. It's 20 minutes long, keep them fairly short. But all I'm asking you is pick one area that you want help with, and we can help you with that one particular area. Because building self-managed teams to me is the secret sauce to building a successful business. Not just employing people, but building self-managed teams. Because now I don't need to micromanage them because they're managing themselves. So if anyone's interested in that, yes, Joe, we will post the link into the chat box. No problem. I am very mindful of time as well. So what I would like to do is we haven't had a Q&A component today. While that chat box, while we put the booking link into the chat box, I might get Ryan, if you can highlight the other two presenters, we're going to open up some questions. If anyone's got any questions about today, this is your chance to ask one of the presenters. If you don't have a question, what I'd like you to do is put into the chat box what has been your top 3 lessons from today's session. What have been the top 3 things that you picked up out of today's call? So any questions, this is your chance. No questions, what's been your takeaways into the chat box? Excellent, we have 2 links that both work. So if anyone would like to book a call, those links are in the chat box. Let's hear some lessons into the chat box. What did you get out of today? 1, 2, or 3 things that you learned out of the 90 minutes we've spent together. Integration, yes. Systems, yes. And growth. See, we talk about systems a lot, but it's the actual creation of systems that's the challenging part. Excellent. Andrew, what is your suggestion? This is for you, Brett. What is your suggestion for the best 3-way financial model software?
Oh, there's a combination. There's Futurely, which we use. There's Spotlight Reporting. There's also Fathom. And there's also a good program called Castaway. So I use Futurely. But yeah, there's a number of different programs.
Yeah, my suggestion is get in touch with Brett and he'll walk you through those tools. There's another interesting question here. Theo, is it ever too late to start thinking with an end in mind? I would suggest the answer is never too late. It's never too late to start thinking with an end in mind, because for most people, what they don't do is they think, oh, you know, I don't know, or I don't know how to think with an end in mind, or I don't know what the end could look like. My suggestion is that you ponder that question, right? You speak to any expert on this. I'm happy to chat with this on an expert call. We do the very first thing we ever do with a client is we say, I want a picture of where your business will be in 5 years' time, regardless of the economy, regardless of the circumstances. I want you to imagine everything goes as planned. What would it look like? And that removes those, well, it depends on this and it depends on that. Beginning with an end in mind is a secret sauce for people in business, because if you know what you're building, the chances of getting it is much more likely than if you're just going with the flow. Martin, don't try and do it alone. 100%. 100%, you know, Everyone thinks, oh, I don't need employees. They're a pain in the neck, and I don't need to use contracts. I'll do it all myself. Well, I'll suggest that if you try and do it on your own, you're going to limit yourself. You're going to be self-employed. And if you're happy with what that produces, stick with it. But if you're looking to grow your business or to scale, it's going to be with other people, whether they're employees, subcontractors, you're going to be working with other people. Even customers, by the way, are other people. So don't think you can do it alone. Excellent. Louise, integration, planning, and leverage. Excellent. Ranesh and goal begin with the end in mind. Yeah, just answer that question. What will my business look like when it's finished? Hard question to answer, but worth pondering. Magnus, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail in all areas. Yeah, most people don't know what planning actually is, so they don't discipline themselves to do it on a weekly basis. Wolfgang, integration with one system, have the numbers in mind and create a self-managed team. Beautiful. Riley, more isn't always better with apps. If anything, I think from what Kel said, it's better to have less. I love the number one. Great aspiration.
On that one, I think it's really important. A lot of people, there has been a mindset for a long time that I've got to have the best app for that task. Sometimes you're better off to have something that's integrated that works effectively rather than going for the top-notch one. And I'll use one very common one, Canva. All right, we all know Canva. It's a great product, awesome product. However, unless you're a full-time graphic designer and you really want to do a lot of stuff, a lot of the integrated apps, like for inside of High Level, inside of Productivity Hub, there's actually a social media graphic design and does your editing and AI and all that type of stuff. So is it as good as Canva? No. Does it do the same job and get the same result? 100% yes.
Yeah.
So just always think, I don't necessarily need the latest and greatest and pay more for it. You just need to get the job done and get it done effectively.
Yeah. I think there's an old saying on that, Kel, don't let perfection get in the way of progression.
Absolutely.
And I think too often people are looking for the best and they spend too much time evaluating when they should be just executing.
Yep.
I think Sukumar said exit, business plan, and tech stack. And Louise said an interesting question. What if I am a home-based business? Can I employ still? Well, I think COVID proved we can employ anywhere, anytime. And employment doesn't mean employees. Employment could be contractors. Employment could be marketing agencies. So when we talk about other people or building a team, I treat my outside agencies the same way as employees. They have job specifications. We're very clear on what they need to do and how we measure success. So the short answer is yes, you can still employ. It's just you might employ in a different way. But I would make sure that you are scaling beyond yourself, because that's how we create leverage and value within the business. And Blanca, amazing presentation. Thanks so much for the valuable information. Excellent. Thank you, Kel, Brett, and David. Each gave great content, lots of food for thought. Thanks. I've got to leave. Have a great day. Well, we're probably going to wind things up about here. So first thing I'd like to say is thanks very much to our presenters. So Brett and Kel did an amazing job today. Second thing I'd like to say is do not be shy in reaching out to anyone on this call, to any of the presenters, because our job is to help. And if we don't think we can help, we'll be absolutely 100% honest with you and say that, right? But if you don't reach out and ask, you don't find the help. And the last piece of the puzzle is make sure you don't leave today with at least one action. Do leave today with at least 1 or 2 action items of things you're going to do differently as a result of this presentation. Because my background is coaching and I hate it when people go, that was a great presentation, goodbye. So no. What are you going to do as a result of what you learned today? Create some tasks, 1 or 2 things that you're going to do differently as a result of the lessons that you've had today. And then you've got some value out of today's presentation. Other than that, I think we're going to start wrapping things up here. So guys, thanks so much for your attention. It's been awesome to have you here. Hopefully you got some valuable insights, and hopefully we can just make one slight change in how you perceive the next step within your business. And then we can start to see some bigger results. So thanks again for your time today, guys. Get out of the jail cell and get into the roadway to freedom. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Enjoy, everyone. See you later.